what is the purpose of life? Is it to get in a car to speed somewhere?
All right. Well, you both had the same idea for Bike Talk. Seems like you, Lindsay and Don, feel that we could open up and be about other things. I would like to talk about Bike Talk as like a wheel, with bikes being the hub and the spokes being everything else that we might talk about.
Yeah. The thing about bikes is that it really does touch almost everything in our lives, either directly or indirectly. And it affects our lack of ability to bike and this sort of forced car ownership that we've imposed on everyone really is tied to so many things that are just really harming us. And I'll tell you one interesting thing is I interviewed an economist for Bike Talk, which will air shortly. And he talked about how economists love bikes because they're the most perfectly efficient thing in the world, and economists love efficiency. And that image of an economist on a bike kind of stuck with me because it's sort of like Occam's razor, it's like the simplest solution is often the right solution. And it's like the bike, it's a really perfect thing that does all these amazing things for your life. And yet we hate cyclists, we hate bike lanes, and we love to bike, and yet we hate everything, the small changes we would need to do to allow all of us to bike.
I wonder what percentage of people really does have a problem with bike lanes and bikes and all the things that we need.
I think that when you really dig in with people, they actually really want to bike. But they can't. We are so impacted with traffic in LA that I feel like we can't imagine our lives with more traffic, and we can't quite imagine biking. And I think that there is definitely, I think women, speaking for myself, I'm too afraid to bike. I don't think it's safe. So it's really hard to imagine getting to a bikeable LA unless you really think about it. So I think we have all these barriers, and then our elected officials they just hear the people just want more, they want less traffic so badly that they really can't make the leap to bikes.
What are some of the spokes that bikes connect to?
Obviously, it's climate, because cars are 40% of our climate emissions, and bikes can radically change that. And the climate scientists are flat out saying we need bikes if we're going to really draw down our emissions and really address climate change. And if not, I mean, it's so unthinkable what we're doing to our kids. So there's climate. There's, I've been reading these statistics from Matthew Lewis, who's been on the show, he's been tweeting about, we spend $3 trillion on cars every year, the US Americans. It's the second biggest thing you spend money on outside of where you live, outside on, rent or a mortgage. 2 months of the money we spend on gasoline, we could pay for college for everyone. It's like I just think it's like cars are kind of bleeding us dry. Like it's this hidden expense, because also there's all these hidden expenses in cars. You like, oh, well, I've got the car loan. Well, what about insurance, gas, fees, new tires, maintenance? All those expenses are just kind of hidden. So it's the number one reason we go into debt. It's the number one reason we default on that debt. So it's like, it's killing us in terms of our household budgets. And it's forcing people to stretch. And I think we all feel very stressed out about money and like having enough, to pay the rent. And like, I've been there where like, I wasn't sure how I was going to pay the rent. And the car is kind of this thing, this albatross. And if you could just remove it, you're really putting $10,000 into the pocket of every single household who can get rid of a car. And this is not about forcing people out of their cars. It's saying, giving them the option to lead, a full and dignified life where they can get to their jobs and, meet a friend and get across town, whether it's on a bus rapid transit or by bike. So yeah, it's when you want to think about like what it's doing to us financially, the lack of bikes is this massive drain. And then you get to health. It's driving so much. I really call it traffic because I think driving is fine, obviously, and people love their cars. Cars actually make people happy, not as happy as bikes, but they do make people happy. But when we're sitting in traffic, what it does to our health, it makes us overweight, it makes us obese. Driving to work versus biking to work, you are doubling your chances of getting cancer and health and heart disease. If for every person who could switch to biking and get out of a car, that would cut their healthcare expenses by 20%, which would be enough to have a public option to have Medicare for all. So we're talking about these not just enormous healthcare expenses that raise our taxes, which, a lot of the country really cares about. It's also killing our health. And then there's our mental health. And, if you've had it, I've had, kids with ADHD, it's really hard. And that is caused by that can really decrease if they can walk and bike. It is road rage is literally in the DSM. Like it's considered a psychological problem to go into road rage. Domestic violence goes up 8% on the heaviest traffic days. Like the traffic is slowly making us crazy. And then there's the housing angle. And somebody put it perfectly to me the other day. They said, remember we used to live in LA where you could live in a garden apartment, those courtyard apartments, and the rents were really low. I'm talking like, pre-1950s, pre-car, right? You could live off Hollywood Boulevard, right? In a little garden apartment and walk down to Hollywood Boulevard and get on a trolley and go anywhere you needed. The 101 was supposed to be a bike lane, and then it became the 101. So we lived in this world where you could live in a wonderful little, housing unit, shared housing unit, and take a trolley everywhere. We can't build those anymore because you have to put in parking, and boom, that makes them too expensive to build. They don't pencil out. So it also means that you go into neighborhoods with any kind of density and the parking's atrocious. So somebody said you can have density of people or density of cars, and you can't have both. And if you're going to live in a city, you want density of people because you want people around. You want to go to stores and cafes and see humanity. It's like, it's part of the what it means to live in a city. And so it's these parking minimums are making it impossible to build the best kind of gentle density, this amazing kind of housing. And then it's also creating another vicious cycle where traffic is so awful, people become NIMBYs and don't want more housing in their neighborhoods because they're like, I cannot deal with one more car. Meanwhile, we have, 40 to 60,000 homeless people, and we need 500,000 more units of housing to meet our state goals. How on earth are we going to absorb 500,000 cars? So by not giving people the option to bike, we are making it also impossible to build housing. So those are my top reasons that lack of bike lanes is actually really affecting so many things we care about.
Yeah. Don, did you want to add to those?
I'm always trying to find a way to sell to the opposition. And it's like, I hear a slam dunk right there. It's like people that complain about traffic, NIMBYs, so-called NIMBYs, like they do have a point in that the new development is just more sprawl, which is more traffic because it's designed poorly, because there's no density. It's just like sprawling single family zoned housing. So they do have a point. They just don't realize that density should be built where we've already ruined the land, like downtown Los Angeles metropolitan. We need density here. But rural areas in wild areas, I mean, we should be working to preserve that, because right now they're doing things like they're okaying the Tejon Ranch development, which is 25,000 unit development. It's way out there, and it's like, what are they going to build? Are they going to build another sprawling, single family housing development that's just generates traffic? Or are they going to build it smart, where it's like pedestrian oriented and you can walk to the market and do your daily tasks without having to get in a car? That's what I'm curious about. There's places where you can agree, like with NIMBYs, like, yeah, preserving wild space is important, especially when all that gets built there is single family housing sprawl, which causes traffic. Anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Also, as we push people out, then they have to drive into their jobs. So we actually just create more traffic. So the Bike Talk interviewed Alex Fish, right? And he said 40,000 more people work in Culver City than live in Culver City, because they don't have enough.
Is Alex Fish the guy up in Beechwood Canyon? That's a different Alex Fish.
He's the mayor of Culver City, and he's just really good on bikes and housing.
Okay, my bad.
He pointed out that there are 40,000 people who can find a job in Culver City but have been pushed out of living there, and then they're just driving through the rest of everyone else's neighborhoods into Culver City. I mean, it's just, we're sort of creating insanity. And
there's some kind of fundamental cognitive dissonance, I don't know what you call it, where NIMBYs don't understand that having safer roads and slower roads in their neighborhood is a good thing, where having less people drive through your neighborhood is a good thing. Or somehow they're not connecting it with, bike infrastructure and pedestrian safety and that kind of stuff. Like, it's really weird for their own neighborhoods too. Some people just don't, it doesn't connect for them. I see this a lot in like the Colorado Boulevard, beautiful Colorado Metro BRT discussion.
It's exactly what you said. It's cognitive dissonance. It's like we're caught in this conundrum where we want to get the cars through the system, the streets, as fast as possible, but the speed is actually preventing us from using the streets in any other way. Once you tell people that, I feel like once you point out that at 20 miles an hour, if you get hit by a car, you have a 90% chance of surviving. At 35, 40 miles an hour, you have a 10% chance of surviving. It becomes lethal. And those 15 miles an hour of somebody else driving through my neighborhood, like, that is, why am I concerned about that? Why am I risking my life and destroying my community so that somebody else can drive through it fast? And it's like there's some kind of like, I think people, like commuters, they speed through everybody else's neighborhood. They hate it when people speed through their neighborhood. But when it comes to like really speaking out, I think they feel some kind of like, it's like a cultural acceptance or something, where it's like, well, I speed through everybody else's neighborhood, so I guess they got to speed through my neighborhood or something. I don't know. Yeah, and actually that brings up such a good point, that like, if we could help people see, and I think they're seeing it because I think COVID woke us all up, if to the idea that having fewer cars and slower cars and making the streets safe is just life-changing. It means that you can let your kid, this is a concept that's out there, from slow street advocates, that like, how amazing if your kid could bike to a friend's house and you don't have to watch your phone with dread to see if the phone, this is what a parent said to me, to see if the phone stops moving because they've been hit by a car. That if kids could safely get to a friend's house, that means you don't have to drive them. And it also means that they have this incredible independence. So this idea, and once people start to see themselves, and I think the key is a beach cruiser with a basket. Once they can see themselves going to a farmer's market, or somebody said during COVID, I got out my old beach cruiser and I put a bottle of wine in the basket and I'd ride over to a friend's house. And it's like, yeah, like that's a great way to live, right?
I saw a lot
And
of
once
that.
you can
I saw a lot of that during COVID. I live in a super suburban area, and there were people out for walks on their bikes. Like, it was crazy. It was definitely an abnormal amount of people and not much traffic. It was so blissful.
Wasn't it blissful? That's the perfect word. And it also, this friend of mine said, yeah. And then I would be 45 minutes late to having a drink with a friend because I'd have to stop and say hi to so many people, but she loved it. It's like, suddenly you're talking to friends and neighbors and connecting. And it's like, what is the purpose of life? Is it to get in a car to speed somewhere?
We brought it. See, Nick, okay, Nick, that's one of the spokes on the wheel. What is the purpose of life? That's definitely one of the spokes on the wheel. Throw it on there.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Bikes and the meaning, the purpose of
Yeah, with just that statement, with Lindsay's statement right there, we brought it to full enlightenment.
Maybe it should be the positive purposes of life, like have it being like joy, right?
I know, right?
Bikes lead to joy. They lead to beautiful streets because you can slow down the cars and you can plant trees and put in bike lanes. They lead to healthy air, right? They lead to more money because you have more money in your pocket if you don't have to buy a car. I'm sure there's a better way of saying that. It leads to looking better, feeling better, right? Like you feel great if you bike every day. You're happier, you have better mental health, and it leads to, a housing surplus. So rents are low and landlords don't get to, squeeze people as much.
How about fewer wars because of oil?
Yeah. Undermining Russia and the GOP. When progressives in LA fight bike lanes, or let's just say our elected leaders don't lead on bike lanes, they're essentially carrying water for the Koch brothers, ExxonMobil, right? Russia, MBS. They're in bed with them in a way they don't really realize. And I'm not saying that they realize this, and I think they don't realize it, because cars are useful. They get us to our jobs. They are aspirational. They're fun. They make us happy. But I think that the distinction I keep trying to make in my own mind is between how much a person might love their car and it's what it means to them and the freedom it brings them, right? But then what traffic does to us and how that ruins our day and, makes us depressed. So.
Thanks, Lindsay.
Sure.